What's going on, Saltstar Nation? Today I will be reviewing the St. Croix Mojo Yak. This is a new rod that came out last year in 2019, and I played around with it a bit these past couple months, and I'm ready to share my thoughts on it with you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and cover everything there is to know about this rod, from the specifications, how it performs on the water, where it excels, where it lacks, just so you guys can know everything there is to know about this rod before you buy. And I do want to reiterate, we are not sponsored or paid by St. Croix for anything that we say in this interview. In fact, there are some bad things about this rod that I am going to say, but we just wanted to make this review so you guys can know everything there is to know before you have to go out and spend your hard-earned money on products like this. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I first want to dive into the specifications of this rod. The one I'm showing you guys today is the 7-foot medium fast action. They do have a 7/6 option available. Now both rods blanks are going to be the same, and if we take a look at this blank here, it is a SC3 high modulus graphite blank. It's made with St. Croix's IPC technology, and what that stands for is integrated poly curve. And essentially when rod manufacturers make their rods, what a lot of them do is they take a machined bevel. When you get to certain points in the rod, they will bevel it down. So it's almost like an indentation that will affect the strength and the action of the rod when you're working lures. Now what St. Croix does that's a little bit different with the IPC, the integrated poly curve, is they bevel the entire rod as one piece. There's not very specific locations on the rod that have bevels, so it makes for a little bit better strength, and when you're working a lure, it's a little bit smoother of an action. So the rod blank is fantastic in my opinion. I like the graphite rod, I like the IPC technology, and it feels great, especially when I'm jigging for flounder or if I'm making very specific movements with a jerk shad for trout or redfish. Now what I want to look at now is the reel seat and the handle. So looking at the reel seat first, we've got the Fuji reel seat, which is just really high quality. You know, I've had reel seats before that will freeze up on me that aren't made with good components. These Fuji reel seats are great. I mean, this one's got dunked before and it just is still super smooth. I like it a lot. So another small thing that was built into this rod, again, definitely by kayak anglers that helped design this, is the Keegan hook keeper. Especially those small hook keepers that you find on most rods, you really have to focus as you put the hook point through. With this double hook keeper, you pretty much don't even have to look. So, you know, you're going to reach for your paddle, you want to rig your rod back up, put it in the rod holder and get moving again. You don't even have to look, you can put it straight on there. So another great little piece of hardware that was integrated into this rod by some awesome kayak anglers that helped design it. Now, the most interesting portion of this rod obviously is the butt, so I've saved the best for last. If we look, it's got these really nice wind grip handles. Now, us kayak fishermen, you know, we've got our hands wet, touching our paddles, touching fish, and there's usually gonna be a lot of slime, a lot of wetness on our hands, and these wind grips are super tacky and they make for really great grip. If I could get these wind grips on all my rods, I absolutely would. I love them. Now, you'll see the length of the butt is very interesting. It's not something that you're gonna see on a lot of rods, and the reason they've done this is specifically for kayak fishermen. This is the Mojo Yak, and you know, in a kayak we've got a PFD on, or you know, we're sitting, and it's really hard with a full length rod. A lot of times you have to hold it further out when you want to work a lure, because that rod butt is going to be smacking you in your PFD or your chest or your waist, or if you've got your paddle on your lap, that real estate between, you know, your waist and the rod is very valuable. So they shorten this up so when you're sitting down or you've got a PFD on, you can work this rod really tight to your body, get just the right motions that you want. Like I said, great for jigging for flounder, or you know, working jerk baits or finesse lures for trout and redfish. So that decreased size butt is fantastic, especially when I'm moving around. If I've got a fish that's making a quick run from one side of my kayak to the other, I can, you know, switch it very quickly around a PFD. With the full size, you know, I've had them get caught on my body before, and it makes for really awkward motions in fighting a fish, and you can possibly lose that fish if you don't keep control of it and you don't keep that tension in the line when you've got that movement. So in terms of how this has been designed for a kayak angler, it's fantastic. They were working with a ton of different professional kayak fishermen, a couple world champions, and they basically built this rod off of suggestions that those guys made. So they did a fantastic job with it and definitely kept the kayak fishermen in mind when they designed this. So let's go ahead and move into some on the water performance, where we'll talk about some pros and cons of how this very specific design is going to affect its performance on the water. So when we talk about on the water performance, a lot of it is going to center around the handle design, because you know, when you're casting or you're fighting fish, this is your primary zone right here. So let's talk about casting first. When we look at a decreased rod butt, unfortunately we're going to see a loss in casting distance. You know, with a larger grip rod, you know, the full size rods, you can really get some good leverage on that rod and crank it. Unfortunately, this is not that long of a butt, so you're not going to be able to get that extra oomph and throw it into your cast. But this decreased, butt here is going to make for some very accurate casting because you can get it very close to your body and really torque it. Again, this also is very useful when you're going to be making skip casts because you're going to be holding it tight to your body and casting very low to the water. Now, I really like this when I'm working around heavy structure and I need to be making accurate casts. If I'm around an oyster bar or if I'm skipping under a dock, this would be a fantastic, fantastic rod to be using. Now, if you're pitching under mangroves, it would be great as well. The tight casts, the accurate casts are really going to, make this rod set apart from others. Now, like I said, you're going to have a loss in casting distance, so I would not be using this for very large search baits or for top waters, especially because this rod is not weighted very well. It's not super balanced because of the shorter handle. It doesn't make for a great top water movements. I, in fact, would not use this at all because you need the counterweight as you're doing a walk the dog action to get that top water. This is fine, if you're using buzz baits or spinner baits or paddle tails and it's a continuous reel, but I would say the best lure you could possibly be using with these is something that you're going to be jigging or using finesse with, because this is, accurate casting. It's got that IPC technology, which makes for really smooth finesse movements, and it is just overall a very comfortable rod to, make finesse movements with this really nice wind grip handle. So in terms of how this rod is going to perform when you're fighting fish, like I said, it is a little bit off balance. The reason is this rod is a little bit heavier up front than it is in the back. So when you're fighting a fish, a lot of the rod is going to take the fight. In the back, you're not going to be able to get some counterweight that you can, lock in if you've got a large fish that's fighting. And unfortunately, if you try to lock this on the side of your arm, it will slip a lot and you'll have a lot of fish that are going to move around. Now, the good news is because it's so short, and the fish takes a run to the other side of your kayak, you can quickly transition it really close to your body. So there's the pros and cons when you're fighting those fish. It just really depends on the species. With flounder, like you're seeing right now, it made that run and I didn't have to worry about it bolting off and me having to really pull back on that rod. But with redfish, it was a little bit more difficult to land them because I did not have control of the runs. I could not steer them in one direction or the other. With trout, I didn't really feel one way or the other. It handled both very well. So it really just depends on the species in terms of how it's going to perform on the water, just because of how those very specific species are going to be fighting. So something else I want to touch on with this rod is the warranty if it breaks. Now, I did a little switcheroo there. This is the first rod that I bought when I wanted to test the St. Croix Mojo Yak, and I was jigging for some sheep's head with some fiddler crabs. Unfortunately got stuck on some structure and was yanking a little too hard. Totally my fault. These rods are very strong and I snapped the tip off. Now, when you do your warranty process, you have to make sure that you break it a little bit above the serial number so that they can confirm that the rod is eligible for warranty. It's up to 5 years from the date that the rod was registered or that it was made if you do not register the rod. So what was great was all I had to do was fill out a very small form, and even during the middle of the pandemic, they were able to get me a new rod. And I've actually still got it in the packaging here, so I'm going to unpackage it for you guys right now and show you exactly how great their customer service is. It was a very painless process. So as you guys can see, it comes packaged very well and all the important components, the rod guides and everything have been protected, and it came in a very nice big piece of very strong packaging. I mean, you can hear that this thing is solid. So, they take very good care of their customers, and I was very impressed with the customer service. So in terms of warranty, know that up to 5 years, if you do something to this rod, all I had to pay was $50 to get it replaced, but it's still covered. If it's a manufacturer's fault, if there's something wrong with the guides or the tip is already broken or something when you buy it, there's issues with it, all you have to do is, again, fill out that form, let them know, they'll give it to you for free. If you do have an accident on your own, like I did, you just have to pay a fraction of the cost of the rod and they will replace it. So it's a pretty solid fee. Most rod manufacturers don't have these great of warranties, so I was very impressed by that and I definitely wanted to include it in this review. So to recap on everything we've talked about today, this is a fantastic rod for a kayak angler. The shorter butt, the wind grips, all of the IPC machining, it really makes for a great finesse rod if you're using, those jerk baits, small jigs, things like that. Again, you're not going to be able to cast very long distances, so larger search baits or top waters, are not going to be great for this rod, but it does have its uses, and I was very impressed with how it handled, when I was fighting fish. Unfortunately, I was not able to get all the tension that I wanted on certain species, but overall, I'm going to continue to use this rod. I was impressed by it, and I originally did not like it, but it did grow on me. So I would highly recommend checking out if you're looking for a rod that's specifically designed for kayak anglers. And if you guys have any other questions about this rod that I did not cover, please leave it in the comments section below, and I would be able to get back to you there. And let us know if there's any other rods you'd like for us to test. I'd be more than happy to check out some more products. Obviously, we're doing this so you guys can get a full scope of knowledge on these products before you have to spend your own money on them. And if you want to see more independent, unbiased reviews on gear and other fishing tackle, as well as some of the best fishing tips out there, please go check out the Salt Strong Insider Club. The Salt Strong Insider community has courses and tips designed to help you become a more efficient and consistent saltwater angler. And we also have reports from local anglers in your area to help you keep up with the trends, and a guarantee that it will help you catch more fish, or it's free. Now, with all the money that you'll be saving on rods, reels, lures, and tackle with your Insider Club discount in the shop, the membership pretty much pays for itself.
There's something about the water that'll give you peace, all by yourself or with your family. Live salt strong and wear the line today.